welcome to this episode 193 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest Eric Koretz, DP of Ransom Canyon. Enjoy. It was crazy. I was like, because the episode you did was like so popular, it's always kind of been top of my mind, but we haven't spoken since around this time in 2022.
Wow. Long time ago. Yeah. I think we saw each other at an event at the ASC briefly.
Yeah. Probably the Kodak Awards, or maybe just, are you going to that tonight?
No.
There's like a I think Clubhouse Conversation, like their podcast.
Right. Yeah.
And I got an invite. But I live on the West Side. So I'm like,
oh yeah,
we'll see. It starts at 5:30. Stop doing events then.
You do, but you know why? Because most of the ASC is
lives over there.
Well over 60 years old.
Yeah.
So
the event's starting at 9. They're like,
that's almost dinner.
Yeah.
although I'm the same way. I'm like 9 o'clock. That's past my bedtime.
Dude, I need to get on that scale. I feel I've been having like anxiety attacks recently, just on like feeling like I have too much to do, just because like I'm not just DPing right now, like I'm editing a lot too. So it's like,
right,
I'm balancing up so much that I end up going to bed at like 2-3 in the morning.
Oh man.
But then it'll kill you, but also a lot of it is so like it's not spent effectively. Like right. A lot of it is just trying to get like stop being so stressed that I'll actually do something.
Right.
And
do you meditate?
Yeah, well, I used to more, but that was when I felt like I had more time. It's like the same thing with working out, you know?
Right.
I was really regimented.
But if you don't, then
it gets worse.
Yeah. So you have to find the time. And there's basic meditations that you can do on your own, but there's so many apps these days that can really help with that. Yeah. I actually, when I guest lecture at AFI or talk to students or young DPs or old DPs or whoever, I always recommend meditation and taking time for yourself, because like our business is so fucked up and time consuming and stressful. Like if you don't, it really takes a toll, and that helps. It helps me, so I figured it could help other people too. You know?
Yeah, I was just talking to Andy. I can't quite pronounce. I have to look up how to pronounce his last name. It starts with an R though. He's Polish. But he shot Friendship, and big part of that conversation was just like health, meditation stuff. Luckily for me, I'm not one of those people. I used to be, but therapy helped too. Therapy and meditation, two great things for film.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But the therapy helped me realize that like I'm the only one in my head. You know, you'll hear people go like, "Oh, I can't be quiet for that long. I can't. It's a fucking madhouse up here." And you're like, then fix that. It's just you.
You got to fix it.
I'm lucky enough that with meditation, it's not like scary.
Right.
You know, it's kind of one of those things, kind of like working out, where working out blows when you're out of shape. But then once you get in shape, you do start to feel like good about it. Right. Yeah. The first 3-4 months just feel like you're beating yourself up. Same thing with meditation. Right. Is like, at first you get like the urge to scroll or whatever, you know, but that part. Yeah. But you know what it is? I was thinking about this literally yesterday because it's been top of my mind. It's the feeling of selfishness. I need to be working for someone else right now, and I'm spending time to do my own thing.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a stupid thought. I've had that thought before and dismissed it, but it's just like now, because there's so much stuff on top of each other, I'm caught in a
well, it's human, especially considering like the times in social media and 24/7 assault on the senses, you know. But it's really the best thing we can do for ourselves, especially if you want to eventually spend time for someone else.
Yeah,
you got to spend time for yourself first, you know.
That just I got to prioritize it. I'm not doing just that.
Do it tonight. Yeah. Tonight's your night.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the ASC thing, just relax, come home, and not freak out about not editing. Just go to bed at 9. Well, I guess 10 probably.
Yeah. And, or you could meditate during the ASC event while you're there and just see what people do.
Sitting there just in the back.
Yeah.
No, I'm listening, but it's very passive. What have you been up to since, what, 2022? There must have been a
Oh
lot.
man. Yeah. I mean, since Ozark, I've been working in TV mostly. Well, all except for a few commercials and a movie, but I shot a show called Special Ops Lioness from Paramount Plus, which was a Taylor Sheridan show. And I did another small show, and I just finished a show called Ransom Canyon, which is on Netflix now. So I'm working pretty nonstop in television.
It was funny. I was looking up. I didn't listen to our last conversation, so I'm hoping you don't cover shit up or like redo stuff. But after 120 episodes, I can't imagine it'd be the same conversation anyway. But
Yeah.
I found an interview with you from 2017 where you were talking about how like I shoot everything for the big screen, like I hate looking at little screens and stuff like that. And I was like,
Right.
I bet that opinion's changed.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't know what the interview that was, but if I was talking about little screens like your phone, the opinion hasn't changed. Like
You were talking about like dailies on an iPad, especially.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, there's no other choice usually, especially for TV. For film, I'll rephrase that. I actually bring a projector and a pop-up screen with me to wherever I'm shooting. For example, in New Mexico, for Ransom Canyon, it was in New Mexico. And at least the test in the first couple weeks, I will screen the dailies for the director and I on an iPad. I'm sorry, on a projection screen with my short throw projector. I ask post to send us to ProRes outputs as opposed to the iPad dailies, and I do that for the whole first episode so that we could really know what we're getting. We're on the same page, and you have to fight for it because they're like, we don't want to fucking spend money so you can get ProRes dailies, but when you run it through the producer, the showrunner, and tell them the benefits of it, and show them on the screen. Even though obviously with television, most people aren't looking at it projected, but there's still TVs are fucking huge these days. So, it's not too far off. And it really helps set the mindset of, okay, we're doing a quality show where the cinematography is important. We can see every little detail as opposed to things that get missed with iPad dailies because it's such low resolution and such a
sharpness increases.
Yeah, so
you don't know if something's out of focus.
You see what's in focus, my guys are great, so it's not an issue. But sometimes there'll be a shot and you don't know if you have it or not. Not that editors usually care; they'll put an out of focus shot in and say, "Well, it was the best performance."
Yeah,
so,
you're not wrong.
Yeah, it's happened quite a bit, but yeah, I find, and then after I've done that for the first episode, then I'm more comfortable with the iPad dailies and honestly, I don't need. I look at the dailies, but I am so in the monitor when I'm shooting that I know what I've gotten that day, and I double check and things that I'm questioning, but I know what I've shot. I stick to the monitors because that's everything, and that's how I do it with dailies.
Well, I remember back in film school, back in the day, there was a big kind of obviously people brought this up before, but the difference between television and film was way different. Most of when people talk about television, they're talking about 3 camera or whatever. But do you guys consider Ozark was probably the same, but when you're making a show for Netflix or Paramount or whatever, do you consider the display size in your framing? Because obviously if you shoot everything Lawrence of Arabia style, there's the idea potentially in the back of your head that it's going to be, the size of a pinhead.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Yeah.
I believe it should stand on its own cinematically, the language of the film. Now, if it was a special case where we knew it was only going to be seen on phones or vertical or
Quibi
whatever, or Quibi, rest in peace. Some beautiful shows on Quibi, or there was,
for the 10 seconds that existed.
for the 10 seconds. It's a great idea. But if you start thinking that way, then everything's just going to be a close up or a medium shot. And so you have to think what's the best cinematic language for the project, for the scene, for the shot, and not will this look good on an iPhone?
Right.
Because to be in truth, if someone's just looking at an iPhone, they're not really looking at it for the cinematography anyways. They're looking at it, they're probably on the subway looking at 2 minutes of it before they get to work, or whatever situation. So you want it to serve the cinematography to serve the story.
There's two modern viewing trends. Well, and then there's the opposite side of it, but I'll start with this. There's two modern viewing trends that I don't get. One of them is start stopping anything. My girlfriend's very chill with it. Like, oh, we'll watch 40 minutes of The Last of Us and then we'll catch the last 20. And I'm like, what?
No, can't.
And then this is more of a me thing, but obviously accessibility is wonderful. But captions, like habitually, by default putting on captions. Because people argue that it's a sound mixing thing. It's like, no, sound's been better than ever. You just are using your television's built-in speakers. This is a you problem. You bought a 4K HDR 72-inch television and put no thought into the audio. That's on you.
Exactly.
But, whenever the captions are on, even if I want to be watching it, I read. It's the shiny.
You can't help it.
Can't help it.
Yeah.
And I find myself just completely ignoring the acting and stuff in favor of the text, which, I don't know, for some films that might be okay, but in general, I don't get it.
Yeah, we had I shot a short film, and it was at a festival, and captions were required for it, and it drove me fucking crazy because I was like, I'm not looking at the screen, I'm looking at the captions.
Well, unless
unless you have a disability or a hearing problem, that's something else entirely. But if you don't.
But theaters make, I know, but theaters make like and granted, I guess it's not every theater. We're lucky in LA. We have like top tier theaters, but I've seen them where people will have, I don't even know how it works, but it's like a retro reflective captioning system where it doesn't, it's not like having a screen on, but it's like it's something that plugs into the chair, and it's personal captions for whoever has hearing disabilities, cool. Whatever. They're rad. I'm like, well, let's get, but I guess having they probably only have a handful of those on hand at any given theater, not like if it's required for everyone, but still.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the whole theater needed.
Luckily I don't need them yet. So
yeah. Dude, I used to shoot, I know you used to be a photographer. I used to shoot events for Red Bull. So this is in like the early 2000s. So this was all like EDM concerts in Arizona and stuff.
Oh man.
And, this year's shot because this year would always fit, and I always had earplugs, but I'd leave them in my bag behind stage and then run out front and just forget.
Right.
We didn't have like sling bags or anything, so just my left ear's cooked.
The same with my eye from documentary days, because it was the first days of the Zacuto eyepiece, which kept fogging up. So the whole time I'm doing this and sun would bake in, and so probably can't tell, maybe you can, this eye's droopier than the other because
you got the truck driver syndrome.
Yeah got killed by the eyepiece.
The things we do. Luck. Speaking of health, man, there's a lot like getting I was just talking to Andy about this fucking custom insoles.
Oh yeah, I've had them for forever.
Oh, what a gem.
Yeah. I needed him back in my Pop Warner football days. I had to get him.
Oh, really?
So I could be the smallest guy in the field, but still stay on the field.
Right.
And then they helped a lot. I still was small, but I could stay on the field that way.
I went to a really small high school, and like my graduating class was like 20 people. And
oh, wow.
real small, but we did have a football team, and we only played like 2 other schools, and so everyone had to play like both sides of the ball. But
Wow.
so I was a safety. I'm 5'9". I stopped growing when I was like 15. 5'9", 130. Now I'm 5'9", like 220, like a completely.
Wow.
Luckily, I don't look hella fat, but it is a little bit of beer gut. But luckily, a lot of it is muscle. Thank you, Collegiate Strength Training. But I was backup
Quick plug.
center. Quick plug for them. Hopefully, they give me free admission. What's funny is they started doing like web content, like testimonials and stuff. And it was like after one of the workouts, one of the owners of the gym was like, "Hey man, you're a camera guy. Can you like help me with this?" So I had like one like COB light that I wasn't like some Godox thing I wasn't using. I was like, if you buy an umbrella for this or like a softbox, you can have my light. I'll give you a stand and I'll just show you basically what you need to do. Nice. And sure enough, they're on their Instagram now and they look decent. Like he's doing a good job. The eye line's all fucked up, but I was like, just bring him down here. We don't need to be over the top of the camera,
Baby steps.
Yeah, but they look good. Audio's good too. I was really proud of them.
Nice.
But yeah, I was backup center, but I never played it except for once, and it was terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, at 130? No, that's not where you're supposed to be.
Definitely not. Even on a 5-person football team.
Yeah, no, very bad. I'm just looking at notes now. But the one thing is the act. Well, you remember how this goes. I'm just going to remember everything as they come.
Do it.
But I was going to say the other side of the equation of like audio and captions is now, after just watching Stevie Flynn's HDR thing, I didn't know why everyone was complaining about things being too dark.
Right.
It's like it's HDR implementation. It's not even HDR as a thing. It's the implementation of it that's fucking everyone up. But everyone thinks that, I bought an HDR, I bought an LG, it should be good.
Right.
It's like, man, I don't think any filmmaker has ever had to, up until recently, educate the audience on how to consume it.
Right. Yeah. And it's still fighting that battle, and that'll be consistent until, well, I don't think that's something that'll ever get solved because television companies don't have any interest in telling people to turn features off.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, maybe they'll all give in a filmmaker mode that you can press a button to do if you're in the know. But I mean, even if there's a button to press that, it's still 90% of the people are not going to press that button.
Well, and you'd wish that, like, because I know, well, maybe you can correct me if I'm not right or if you even know, but I had heard that Netflix has like an implementation for film grain where they send the signal out clean, and then in the app on the client side, they add the grain after the fact, so that grain doesn't eat up the image bitrate for bitrate reasons. Right.
I don't think that happened because we have film grain for Ransom Canyon. And I don't think that's the case with that. I think it's implemented, in the output because, and in fact, I know it's implemented into the output because I have some files, that are, that have it on there. I think that would be hard. That'd be a lot of legwork on Netflix side to do. Maybe they've done it as a test case for some.
It might have been like a patent that they never implemented or something. I remember seeing a diagram, but I don't know. I never heard anything else from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible.
But you're right. That would eat up potentially processor stuff on the TV. Like, how would the TV do it?
Yeah, I don't know. And then it would. Yeah.
My point was just going to be if they could do something like that, there should be a way to trigger a TV. Like when I turn on the PlayStation and the TV goes game mode, like when you open up Netflix or whatever, it should just trigger filmmaker mode.
Filmmaker mode. Yeah. That's a great idea.
Don't.
If they cared, they would do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Before getting to Ransom Canyon though, there was 2 things that I looked up that I saw. One was greedy people looked cool.
Oh yeah. That was a fun one.
But you had to shoot that in 2 weeks. 4 weeks?
No, it was 4-ish weeks. It was a small movie, in a very short shoot.
Mm.
We shot in Wilmington, North Carolina. Yeah, it was. I think we had 22 or 22 days, maybe. When I first signed on to the project, it was more days, and they, of course, cut a bunch of days off once I had signed on. So that's how it works in indie films. But yeah, it was a very short shoot. And Potsy Ponzarelli is an incredible director and fun. The cast was so fun.
Yeah, you had some studs on there for sure.
Yeah, and they're all hilarious. It was kind of like a dark crime. I don't know, it's a comedy, maybe a dramedy.
Right.
But yeah, that was a fun shoot.
The thing I wanted to bring up about that was right after that, I saw like a video you had just done for Profoto.
Oh yeah.
Which I was like, did you get a sponsorship from Profoto? And then the very next video was Aperture for Ransom Canyon. And it kind of encapsulated this idea that of a kind of a series of questions or an idea I wanted to float past you, which was like, prosumer gear on quote unquote bigger films, but also like, is there anything that's, what's to consumer? Because Aperture started as, good, but even having Bowen's mount on a film set 15 years ago would have been like, what are you doing? That's a photo thing. We don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm non-denominational with my lighting.
Sure. Yeah. Which is the funny thing, because you should, because it's light. They don't see the fixture, they see the result.
Yeah, exactly. I've always been interested in new technologies and gear. I started off with when I was first shooting with a blog, if you remember blogs. And I would write about
Blogspot.
Yeah. I would write about gear. And there would be a way to sort of get companies to send me gear that I couldn't afford at the time. And then, exactly. And then send it to me, and I try it out and then write about it. And I met a lot of great people, companies that way. And Aperture was one of those companies that they started off with, prosumer stuff, I would say, consumer prosumer stuff. When I first started using it, I was like, oh, this is actually would look great on any set. There's nothing like it, out there. And they were always innovating. And with Aperture, I love how they, really just started making pro stuff. They listened to DPs, they listened to gaffers, and just started building really great lights. And we used a ton of them on Ransom Canyon. Profoto is new to. They've always been the staple of still photography.
Yeah, they're the RE
lighting.
Still photography.
Yeah, just incredible high quality lights. And they reached out to me to sort of try their new stuff because they were doing a cinema line. And it's so good and so precise. And they have all of their light shaping tools, which are incredible work for the Profoto lights, as well as Bowen's mount stuff. So, and they're building a pipeline of really good lights as well. So, I was happy to use it and try it out and promote it. Now, they have some more stuff coming that's great. But
some free flashes.
Yeah. For me, lighting is I look at, does it have output? What's the quality of the light? Does it have special use scenarios? And I always try, even if my gaffer hasn't used certain lights before, I try and bring them in, show him how I use it, and then try and integrate it into our workflow. Sometimes in the beginning, I have to force the case a little bit and be like, this is how you use this here. Most of the time, though, it's just they're enthusiastic and or they already use it already. Almost everyone's using some form of either Aperture or Nanlux or something like that on the sets these days. They're just too versatile and too high powered and too high quality not to.
And inexpensive for the most part.
And inexpensive and low power draw, which is very important.
Because that was kind of the thought, or one of the thoughts about Greedy People, was like being a fast indie film, which I hadn't seen. I just saw the stills and the whole thing, but it was just like this idea of like, you've worked on kind of both sides of it. what
Yeah.
does shooting a film like that look like from a technical standpoint? Like, what kind of fixtures are you bringing in? Are you able to expand the way you want, or like, how are you staying fast and nimble on something like that?
Yeah, I had a lot of LEDs that everything went to the we didn't have a dimmer board per se. We had an iPad system,
Right.
and everything just went to the iPad system because especially on a smaller budget shoot, you really need to move fast and you have to have a plan. But I like to change things on the fly as I see them, as I'm inspired. So that means it has to be on an iPad system. And it allows you to really, if it's as simple as changing the output or the color, but it lets you to change your ideas quickly. And so that's essentially the system I would use on a smaller budget shoot. But it's also the same system that I would use in a larger budget shoot. I would just have more lights,
Right.
a full dimmer board system, more people to man the lights, and so it's the same, just scale is different.
I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at is like how, like when you have a bunch more lights, what are the lights that are being stripped away? Because obviously you don't
Yeah.
want to like get cheaper looking, but there's
No.
certain things that are nice to have. So like, what are the kind of non-negotiables versus the nice to haves?
You know, for me, lighting is all location dependent. So it starts in pre-production, and I try and steer the director towards locations that work within our budget that we can handle, that I know I can make look good. And that's not always the case because for example, in Wilmington area, Southport, where we're shooting, there's very limited amount of locations that actually work. So sometimes you just have to shoot the location, even if it doesn't fully work for your lighting package, and try and make it work. But you try and steer the locations towards how can I light this in a way that serves the story, it tells the story, and thirdly, in a beautiful way that evokes emotion or the feeling of the scene. And so I try and guide that when I'm looking at location. I'm very involved in the locations. I'm not a DP that's like, just to give me any location, I'll make it look. I can look at a location and know, okay, this is going to look pretty good if I come through the window, and so obviously you need bigger lights when you're bouncing, looking out a window. So that's something to keep in mind. Higher output lets you balance and not blow out the windows in the background. And that's the biggest concern when I'm looking at a location, depending on our budget. But you can do a lot with a little. Whether it's bouncing it, through reflectors or, just simple ND on glass. There's a lot of ways and tricks to really make it work.
Well, I'd seen in a couple interviews you talking about the light bridge system, which I remember when they had first launched before Matthews bought them. The thing that everyone seemed to love the idea of, but when I talked to at least the original Lightbridge team, they're like, that's not really why we made it. But I was like, that's what everyone wants to use it for, was the idea of like mounting like one COB to the bottom of a C stand and putting like 4 reflectors kind of nested on top of it. So you could just hit like a bunch of different things in the room off of one thing.
Yeah. I do that sometimes. Yeah. A lot of times I do try and use one reflector. The light bridges are great. Ilya from Hot Rod Cameras has a new system out called the Betty boards, I believe, which are really nice quality of light reflected onto the face. It's got these dimples in it that really diffuse the light in a nice way. So there's a bunch of options out there for reflection. But
this makes one.
Yeah. So so does Dado. Dado has a bunch of good reflectors. And in fact, I use Dado's mirror reflectors where you can kind of shape the quality. I like to hit background hits with that. But I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
Using one reflector.
Yeah. Completely forgot what I was saying.
Well, it's just I don't see them a lot, but they've been out for so long, and you're right. I think Dado might have been the first one, but they've been out for so long, and they're I think it must have been the Matthews purchase, but I've only really started to see them on productions like relatively recently.
Oh yeah,
Those reflectors versus like, I guess, but no one was just using like mirrors before. Obviously, shiny boards.
yeah,
But
shiny board. I started using them the reflectors, and I did a movie in right after COVID, and I had brought them with the jungle to me to use them in Puerto Rico, and they got absolutely destroyed. But it was nice. My goal when I'm using reflectors, I always like an imperfect path of the light to the subject. I want to fuck the light up as much as possible so that it feels natural, so it doesn't feel like a light source hitting the subject. So I shoot it with, whether it's shooting through branchioloruses, bouncing it off of anything really, from not Duvitine, sorry, any sort of reflective surface, so I like bouncing it off things, through things, and then just really breaking up the light. To me, that I find beauty in that.
yeah, was it you who told me about bouncing off gray?
Possibly, I do that.
Maybe it was. I think I was just talking about you yesterday. Then I was like, someone told me about bouncing off gray. It's just been sitting in.
Yeah.
But that actually brings up some of the. I had heard you use the imperfect path thing a lot, and I was wondering if you could elucidate the difference between an imperfect path and the dreaded multiple shadows.
Yeah. Well, I occasionally do it, but I think multiple shadows are okay if it feels natural. But if it feels like a light source, if you have multiple light sources hitting one subject, that can make it subconsciously to an audience it doesn't feel correct, because let's say it's the sunlight coming through, and let's say that sunlight isn't bouncing off of something else and coming through the window. It's a dead giveaway to, oh, there's a movie light on set. Whether the audience feels it or not, obviously, as a DP, we notice these things. But I try not to do anything subconsciously that's incorrect, that the audience will take the audience out of the show, whatever they're watching. But sometimes it's unavoidable. And in fact, I think I'll have multiple shadows in the background because, and I justify it as, oh yeah, that light was hitting off the building to the side and this one's coming straight through. There's a justification for anything. And if it's in the background, no one's really going to notice, I think. But yeah, multiple shadows, it drives me crazy when I see that on someone's face, when their nose is creating multiple shadows and it's supposed to be one source of sunlight coming through. Now, if you're in a warehouse and something else is happening, there's justification for that, but
right.
I try and avoid it. I like one key, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Well, and this,
if you know what I mean.
This is not the 80s, sir. But no, this is great, because this is the thing that made me think about this was the little featurette you did with Aperture.
Is that out? I didn't even know that's out.
Yeah, I don't know when it came out, but I just saw it earlier today. But
Gotcha.
There's like a web page for it, which I found first. And then they're like, watch our video. And I was like, there's no video linked. I had to go search for it. But the video it's out. I think it looks like they meant to hyperlink it and they just forgot. But it is on their YouTube. But in any case, in one of the stills, it's so I watched the first episode of Ransom Canyon and then skipped through your episodes, which were 2, 5, 6, 9, and 10.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was just trying to make sure I had like a good, just in case the look drastically changed halfway through or something.
Did it?
But I don't think it did. But there was one of the frames they use is the one girl is standing there with homeboy with a shirt off. Everyone takes their shirt off. We love that.
Yes. I was shirtless during the
skin bounce. So but they highlight, they're like, notice the 2 window slashes, and I was like, why would we want to notice that?
I was pointing it. I was pointing it out as like, oh, that's what I did there. I normally wouldn't do that, but I wanted to reach it in. I wanted to reach in further, and normally I wouldn't do that, but that was sort of like a cell phone, I think.
But here's the thing though, they pointed it out before I found the video where you explain it. Mm-hmm. But then immediately I was like, oh, well, it actually works because what if there's a car parked outside?
Yeah. And that was my justification. It was like, it was hitting the background. I actually don't care because that light could have bounced in a normal situation. That could have bounced from anywhere. It could have bounced from a car. It could have bounced from a building across the street. It could have bounced from a horse holding a mirror. That it was right. Never know on Ransom Canyon.
Yeah. Well, and the one key thing brings up another thought I had, which was like, for a Western, I know you built a big ass lookbook for this, but for any Western, or this is obviously isn't a Western, but like
it's Western,
Western adjacent.
Yeah.
It's like, it feels like you did this, but you can help fill it out. Is like the sun is everything. Everything is the sun. There's no other lights. If they are, they're irrelevant. There's the sun, and everything is that. Yeah. And but I did notice that like everything, technically, big soft source, big soft key.
Yeah.
Except for the outside stuff. Well, not all of it. There's some bounce out there that's great. But I was wondering if you could kind of walk me through like the approach to the show.
Yeah, I think especially for this show, normally I wouldn't just do a big soft key on a show for everything. But I think one of the mandates for the show is that from April, April Blair, the showrunner, is like, she wanted it to feel like people should want to move to Ransom Canyon. Everyone should look beautiful. Everyone should, show off their sexiness. Not her words, but like, so
everyone is sexy in the show. Let's be honest,
right? Including my crew.
Yep.
So one of the ways with Amanda Marsalis, the director, and I was like, we just wanted a big, beautiful, soft source. That's really a way to sort of accentuate who these characters are, and the locations really lent themselves to that, being able to do that, whether it's Keith Neely, who built the sets, who let us sort of these big open spaces that we could bring in these big soft sources. It was a way to really, it was our answer to make everyone and everything beautiful in a way. Now on a show like Ozark, I'm not doing a big soft source on every shot. The lighting of the locations dictates a lot of time what the source will be. I will have something big and soft for keys a lot of times, but it could be just a tube overhead, or it could be just being lit by a practical. So it really depends on the content of the show and how I light. In fact, if you look at all my work is pretty different. All my shows are very different. So, on Special Op Lioness, a lot of it is from practicals. I mean, made to feel like it's from practicals. They're actually not. I have lights hidden everywhere in the ceilings, but you want it to feel like it originated from a practical or from something.
Yeah. Well, and it didn't even, especially in that first episode, it didn't even really occur to me that you were doing that until I had seen it. Obviously, I'm watching it like with a critical eye. I'm not just letting it wash over me like I would with me. But it took about halfway through before I was like, wait a second, just because especially there's a lot of outside stuff, and that's just what appears to be just the sun playing. Like, it didn't look like you guys were modifying that at all.
No, we were a lot.
Yeah. Oh, really? Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of the sun stuff. I mean, it depends on the situation, but a lot of it, some of it was back edge. There are a handful of times, yes, that it would just be the sun, but at least one side of it was heavily, lit and, overhead diffusion or, negatives, just to kind of block off the direct sun and just let a, big soft source hit them. So it just depends.
Mm. I did see a few in later episodes, the few times you got bit by overcast.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we started the show is supposed to be this beautiful Texas summer, and we started shooting in the dead of winter in New Mexico. So, the whole first 2 episodes, and we saved some stuff for later on. But a lot of that was, winter that we had to make look like summer and bright and warm. So
yeah. But how do you do that?
It depends. A lot of times it is taking that overhead light out and bringing the soft sun source through with big lights. And then a lot of VFX puts a lot of green in because a lot of it was not green. So that helps. The green helps sell it. but we did had a lot of overcast days that we had to deal with, and the New Mexico weather's changing all the time, so we had to figure out, how to fix that.
Yeah, because it was the only reason I noticed was because of the absence of obvious sun.
Right.
Once I started to catch the formula, I was like, oh, fuck my weather.
There's only so much you could do at a certain point if it's not sunny and it's supposed to be sunny.
Yeah. Not that it looks bad, obviously. I didn't, but it's one of those things. Just the thing that sucks is like it's when stuff like that happens is when I want to dig in the most, because that's oftentimes the most instructive. When you're handed a perfect scene, it's like seasoning food. You have a perfect steak. It's like, we just put salt on it. What do you want? I didn't.
Right. Yeah, it's a good thing, no, because it's a fine line of like, what do you do when the situation of the environment isn't conducive to what the story is? And that's when budget helps. That's when having a big grip department with tools helps. Lulls with 20 buys of negative or diffusion, or in condors and all of those things, and big HMIs. I mean, that's when you're breaking those out a lot of times outdoors for these, but you're also doing when it's sunny out too, so you can shoot all day, shaping, blocking the light, shaping the light. The grip side is incredibly important for that.
Yeah, I did notice a few of the night shots were Ozark adjacent. Also, the colorist kind of, I felt like just like giving you a nod. Yeah.
Well, Tim, not only giving out Tim Stippen, who's an incredible colorist, also colored Ozark.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Then I saw his hand then. Yes. Some of that. Also, to your point about,
he's incredible.
I mean, I feel like half the people that were like, the cinematography is Ozark's incredible. I'm like, I think we need to look at the colorist a little.
Oh, Tim is a lot of that is Tim developed that look in the beginning. And then, it's, if you look at Ozark, the four seasons, it's actually changed quite a bit over the 4 seasons. So he helped really evolve that look.
You had a camera change there too, though, right?
Yeah. The first season, was the Panasonic, Varicam. And then I think season 2 went to the Venice. And then we stayed on the Venice for, I believe it's season 2 that started on the Venice, and we stayed on the Venice all the way through.
Dude, right now, I was just looking yesterday out of curiosity, because I have a C500 and a C70, and I'm starting to note, like, as I'm getting nicer and nicer gigs, I'm starting to notice the difference between me getting hired and me not getting hired at my level is like, that man owns a Venice. And so I was like, or whatever, right. And I was always the person who's like, the camera will not get you the job, or if it does, it's not going to get you the follow-up job if you suck. Right. So I was always very like cautious about dropping a bunch of gas. You can get a Venice 1 on eBay for like 16 grand.
Yeah. And honestly, the Venice 1, when the Venice 2 came out, I was mixing those together a lot. So yeah, Venice 1's a great camera still.
Yeah. And then like Alexa Classics are like 4. You can get an F55 for 3 grand.
Wow.
And I was kind of looking at that, but no one's going to, if you're getting a camera for a rent, like owner operator thing, I put a poll. Let's see what people say on the poll on Instagram. What do you think the most in demand owner operator camera is?
Yeah, Alexa 35.
Oh, I didn't use that as an option. I put Mini LF, Venice, and Raptor. And
you should add the Alexa 35 to that, because I'm pretty sure that's become the.
Yeah, I would. Well, because right now LF is winning by a hefty amount, so I would guess.
So do a follow up, do LF versus
35.
Yeah. And that has a lot to do with lenses. Not everyone wants to shoot full frame, and there's so many lenses you can use if you use the Alexa 35. So I personally love the Venice just because of the one-stop NDs and the dual ISO. But the Alexa 35 is a great camera. We shot part of Lioness with it, Special Ops Lioness.
Yeah. I just spoke to the product manager for the 35, and the way that they approach the way they make cameras is really simple, but like in a good way. They're like, well, standards have changed, and we want people to be able to use this for the next 15 years. So we just kind of overshoot the standards that are now, and then we don't see people having more than 20 stops of dynamic range in the future. So go with that for the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is yeah. What was I going to say before that? Oh, the thing about practicals not playing as practicals. Right at the beginning, Josh Duhamel's like answering a phone. Oh yeah, because his like kid dies or whatever, and he turns on the light.
Kid dies or whatever.
Whatever it was, and the turns on the light, and I was just like, spoiler for the first 30 seconds of the series. And
his kid dies.
Yeah. The tagline: Josh Duhamel's hot, Minka Kelly's hot, kid died. Yeah. But it turns on a light and it's just not blasting him in the face. And I was like, I would like to know what that was. And I'm going to guess InfiniBar.
Probably in a softbox.
Yeah. Because you were using those pretty liberally, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had some softbox made for the InfiniBars.
Oh, really?
At the time. Because I don't think they had, the ones they had, I wanted a deeper, the InfiniBar softbox that comes with is kind of shallow, and I wanted a deeper pull, so we had some made for it.
And did you end up using those because you had like a relationship with them, or like those as opposed to the Astera tubes, which most people have?
We use both. Mm-hmm. I had my own InfiniBars, and then we had some from Aperture. And I believe we also got a set of Asteras. You're using so many tubes on set that we would just use them interchangeably. It's all going to the same dimmer board. So I wanted to use a lot of the Aperture InfiniBars because I had them and they were giving us some to use, and I thought they were great. So we're really testing them out.
Yeah, I'm sure the line producer's happy when you're like, we'll just get to use them.
Sure.
You look at it. But the one photo I saw
as a secret, line producers are never happy.
I trust me. I'm starting to learn that. Also, I was just talking about this with Andy, but the thing that I had to learn, speaking of lessons, was not letting not letting like the producers who are telling me I need to take a haircut on my rate and that this is a low budget thing dictate me trying to help them. Meaning like not asking for stuff that I think would help us because I'm trying to save the budget.
Yes, you have to. Exactly. They're always going to ask, like, I don't want to say complain about the budget. It's always not going to be enough. So, go within your means to get what you need. But it's not on you to find the free lights to help out. Right. I mean, depending on the production, if it's for a friend, sure, or a project you believe in, but that's how
it was an easy rig. I was like, I don't want to, which for them.
Well, if it saves your back, that's a whole nother thing.
I had a full Ronin with the ring for 2 days straight, and I just killed myself.
Yeah, you need to save your body, but yeah, you need to get what you need to get, but it's not up to you to save their budget. The project dictates what you need for it, and you should be able to get that within reason. So
yeah, well, and in the same way that they're telling you what they need, meaning what's in the budget,
right?
You need to be able to say what you need, and then the two of you figure it out. It's self-limiting.
Exactly.
That they like me more.
The best line producers work with you to figure out how to get what you need. If they're telling you this is what we have and this is what you're going to get, that's not a collaboration, and that's frankly it's not somebody you want to work with again. Not that it's a choice a lot of times, but the best line producers, you work with them and say, okay, this is our budget. Maybe if we get a little bit more, we can afford these. There's always a push and pull. If we get a little bit more, maybe we can afford these things, whether it's camera, whether it's lights. I've been fortunate to work with some good line producers on these shows that, they tell me what they can afford. They tell me how much, like if they could get a little bit more. And I say, oh, well, if we can do this, I can find this, And it's working with a gaffer or, a camera team to do that as well.
And well, luckily
it's important to help. Even a lot of them are combative at first. So helping them helping them understand that you're on their side for the sake of the show, not for your own self-interest, is very important. And helping, because frankly, they work with a lot of DPs that are really like, fuck you, I want this, go figure it out. But it works the other way too. So I try not to do that. I'm sure at some points I do, but I want them to work with me because there's no point in being combative on a show. It doesn't help anyone. Right. And if they're interested in the quality of the show, which again, some of them are, some of them aren't, they will help you.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you're an excellent communicator, because otherwise you wouldn't have the career you have. But I feel like that also helps when you're able to explain why something is necessary versus just saying like, just trust me. I need
trust me doesn't work. Trust me doesn't work. No one trusts anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, communicating well, communicating good.
Yeah, doing good communication good is good.
Yes. But that goes to all departments, working with the production designer to get them to build the set in the best way to light, add lights, or, working with the set dressers and to get the right practicals. All of that's communication is important, and no one wants to be told what to do. We wanted to collaborate.
Yeah. Somewhat related to that actually was something I was thinking of, which is I try to keep my ear to the ground a little bit of just what audience trends are. And there seems to, especially I think of myself as an educator to a degree. And so you got to, like what are students thinking about? And one of them is this idea of that there is a Netflix look or an A24 look, which blows my mind because I'm like, they're a distributor. But I was wondering if you could speak to the idea of there being a Netflix look, or what maybe, if it's not dictated, which I can't imagine it is, but if it is, great. What forces might make people feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like there's a Netflix look. Netflix themselves are certainly involved in the production. At least they were in this production. And I think because this show reached a certain target audience that they wanted to hit. To be fair, both Amanda and I came from Ozark, which is a very dark, moody show, which no one wanted the show to be. Right. So there was some checking in, I'd say, about the look the first, week or two, about, is it going to be too dark? Is it going to be, warm enough? Is it going to be bright enough? All of the things. Is it going to be lush enough? And they eventually, their fears were cited. Not that they were fears, but just questions, So they are involved. I think it also depends on the show too, how involved they are. But to say there's a Netflix look, I don't think there is. I think for A24, I think because of all their shows are somewhat different, but you see a lot of sort of not muddier, but I feel like A24 is called a certain look more frequently than the Netflix look would be, just because it's more independent and they. But I doubt that I've never worked for A24, so I don't know. But I doubt that they tell them this is the A24 look. I would be very surprised.
Right. And my thinking is kind of it's almost like a misnomer, because it's not that A24 has a look. It's that A24 is picking scripts that have a similar, not vibe necessarily, but those looks end up being similar. Not that that's what they're asking for. Because like Zola doesn't look anything like Death of a Unicorn or,
right.
Uncut Gems or anything.
Right. But exactly. You said it better than me. I would say they just have a more independent, and they hire more independent, directors, DPs that have diverging looks, but through that, maybe people feel there's a uniformity. But I don't think so. I think the stuff looks great.
Yeah. Well, and also I think maybe Netflix might just be the kind of 800-pound gorilla that people are pointing to, only because the baseline quality for anything is super high, right? So if you have a low budget show or feature or whatever, even not that anyone's doing the bare minimum, but even if you did do the bare minimum, it still looks really good. So I think if you see a lot of like lower budget stuff in a row, and Netflix was not necessarily producing them all, but you would watch it on Netflix because they were the big, they're the mainstream. Then you get this idea that that's again the same thing, the distributor, not the actual production. At least that's my theory.
Yeah, I agree with your theory.
Yeah. I normally ask this at the beginning, but what have you been enjoying watching?
Oh man. I love the studio. It gives me I laugh, and it also gives me heavy anxiety at the same time. I think it's great, and I love how it's shot. I think it's fucking brilliant. What else have I been watching? What else is on? I don't even remember. My brain just it all sort of blends. Oh, and Andor is absolutely incredible. I love Andor so much.
I hope I'm getting the DPs. It's still in emails, but we're right there.
I'm sure you will. But they do incredible work, and believe it's different DPs from the first season.
Adriano Goldman was the first one.
Yeah, and he's fantastic. But I think it looks incredible this season as well. So
Tony Gilroy doesn't miss.
No,
I just rewatched Michael Clayton the other day, and I'm like, this
Michael Clayton's incredible. Yeah,
it's one of the best movies ever made. And it's like you only see the post. It's distributed everywhere. You can watch it on any platform, and I feel like it's one of those movies you're like, no, I've seen that.
Yeah,
you watch it again.
Yes, I've seen it multiple. Ellswood, I believe, shot that. I believe so. I could be wrong, but yeah, incredible. But I'm mostly watching. I mean, I see everything, and I learn. I think one important thing is for me anyway, it helps is I watch everything, whether I think it's going to be good or bad, as long as it's not a romantic comedy, and then just to learn from it, because I see how I don't want to do things, and I see how I do want to do things.
And you can be surprised. I've been surprised by a bunch of movies.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I watched one I was incredibly surprised was Black Doves, which I thought was awesome, and I had no idea what it was going into it, and I thought it was just smart and funny.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, me and my sister will very often, just because we have the AMC A list, just book each other tickets, and it's like show up or don't. But we don't watch trailers. Can't remember what we went to go see.
Well, how do you not watch the trailer if they play like an hour of trailers before every?
That's when we're grabbing drinks at the restaurant next to the. But
smart.
Well, because for AMC it's 20 minutes,
right?
Like it's a known value, so we just But I do love trailers. I do like watching trailers, but I try not to. If I'm gonna go see a movie that just shows up in my calendar, like I try to just go in super cold, because the marketing department very often can.
They show everything. They show the entire plot of the movie.
Different department, man. They're not filmmakers. Like I can't hold them accountable for whoever's over their neck telling them they need to,
Right.
But I can't remember. Me and Natalie my sisters and Natalie, we sat down for something, and she had booked the tickets. And I leaned over. I was like, "What's this about?" She goes, "No idea." And we're like, great. And I remember we both loved it. And I think too, when you go in with no expectations, you end up just giving yourself to the film more so than when you sit there like, all right, time to impress me, Thunderbolts, or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. Andor is definitely up there for me. What else did I have? I mean, I gotta let you go here in a second. Oh, I was looking at your. This is a stupid joke I had written here. I was like, I'm a hockey fan. I was looking at your website. And I was like,
the NHL spots.
Yeah, I was like, really, really cool. And then you ruined it with Brad Marchand.
Wow.
You just got to
watch it. I'm from Boston.
I know you are.
although rest in peace, Brad Marchand. I mean, Brad Marchand was fucking hilarious.
I've heard he's the best guy. I'm like, why can't you do that on the ice?
Yeah.
Why can't you be the best guy on the ice? Because you're a pain in my dick every time you skate.
Well, sometimes he is the best guy on the ice, and he's also the funniest guy on the ice. He didn't even lick someone's ear once. Like,
he's always doing. Yeah, it was like weird. Him and Joe Thornton, but I'm a Sharks fan, so I'll accept Joe, doing a lot of that and stuff. Which also, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, not a good trade.
No, just fantastic for us.
Yeah. But that was a fun series. We actually, and that's another example of budget. The first one we did, Ritesh Gupta is the director, and it was just a low budget promo that we were doing for the NHL. And I brought my key grip, who Don Reynolds, who's normally my key grip, but he gaffed and key gripped, so it was just me and him for the lighting grip crew, and then Lorenzo, my AC, and Reed, my operator, and a DIT, and that's all we had. And wow. I was putting lights up with Don, myself. We had each player for like 20 minutes, in 7 different locations throughout the Golden Knights NHL facility, and it was fun, just doing that all on my own again for the not on my own with right. Just a few guys,
about a my-sized crew.
Yeah, small crew. Yeah. And sort of, we were controlling the lights off an iPhone, their aperture lights, and then they loved it. It did incredibly well. And so they did a whole series of them, which we had a slightly bigger budget, but not much. I wasn't putting up lights myself anymore, but it wasn't a big crew, and we didn't have much time, and we were, 4 or 5 different cities, and again, 15 minutes with each hockey player. So, but I love those kind of comedy shoots where they're fun. The players are having fun. Everyone's enjoying it, well, it makes it better, especially in a commercial.
Yeah. And I also feel like hockey players uniquely, because hockey is such a small sport in comparison to the other 3 major sports, that they're allowed to, they're not so wooden usually.
Yeah.
Except for these kids that are on the draft, dog. I'm pretty sure 2 of them were high yesterday. They're I had a good time. But
or they're 12.
Yeah, exactly. But the I remember those Sports Center commercials with Ovi, as a Russian spy and stuff. I'm like, these are great. You would never see, Shohei Ohtani is not going to make some suggested Japanese, slight.
Right.
He's worth too much,
Yeah. I will tell you a funny story that I haven't told anyone live. Sure. I was talking to Marchand, and I was telling him how I grew up in Boston. I asked him if he went to the old Boston Garden, which was this great old stadium.
That was before it was TD Garden?
Yeah. I think they tore it down late 90s, early 90s. So I grew up season tickets, going to all the games, and I asked him if he had ever been there. He's like, no. Did you watch Bobby Orr play? And I just sort of, for those of you who don't know, Bobby Orr's retired in the 60s, maybe 70s, early 70s. And then I just sort of looked at him, and he was like, yeah, maybe that's a little after your time, before your time.
I saw.
So I can't tell if he was fucking with me or if he was serious. But I'm pretty sure he was serious.
Oh no, I would hope he would be fucking with you, because he's quick. I mean, I've been, when now that Biz is doing what is it, TNT or whatever, with Gretzky, which is insane. But they'll just be chirping each other live. Marchand will be in the penalty box, and they're just yelling at each other. I remember Biz was like, hey, Brad, thanks for coming on the show. How much time does it take for you to get the sunscreen to the back of your head? They're just God damn. Bro, he's playing.
That's good. Hockey is an accessible sport.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? Before I let you... Oh, all right. Final two. One thing I did actually want to ask you about. It's not necessarily specific to this show, but it's something that I think I saw, and I see it everywhere. And so I wanted to know, do you guys film in slow-mo just in case?
For
there's just
television?
Yeah, well, for a lot of shows, and I feel like movies, I can never tell if people are adjusting the shutter for a reason, or if it was originally shot in slow-mo and then in the edit they're like, you know what, just play that normal speed.
So what we'll do, not for most things, no. But if there's a scene where we think we might want to use slow motion, obviously there's no dialogue involved, we'll shoot it in either, derivative is a 24 frame, so we'll do 48, 96, I believe, math is correct.
Yep.
And then that's an easier interpolation to bring it back down to 24 frames. Yes, for certain things, but that's why you'll notice if it's in 24 frames, obviously there'll be the shutter will be different than a normal 24 frames. So it feels a little more staccato when they take it back to 24. But as a rule, no. Only if there's very few shots I think that we were going to do slow mo in the show, and I actually didn't. I don't know. I didn't notice if they brought it back to 24, but
yeah, it could have literally just been when I was skipping through like the one I happened to land on.
Right. But we will keep in mind if they do not want to use slow mo, bring it back.
Because the only reason I ask is because I've been doing that, like just shooting a lot of stuff at 24, especially like B-roll or whatever, and I'm like, am I pissing off the editor? Is this pretty normal?
Well, I think if you're doing a commercial, a lot of times I will shoot a lot of commercial at 48 or at least at 48 if there's no dialogue, just because having that, slow motion helps a lot of times with commercials. Yeah. But in narrative, not so much.
Right. Well, and for commercial, I imagine too, even if it's not just like making it look cool, but just being able to adjust time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good to know. Well, all right. Final question we're back from where we started, which is only because I'm thinking about it. What is the Eric Koretz? I have to actually apologize. I pronounced in the first episode, I pronounced your name Koretz. That's not right. It's Koretz.
Everyone does it, so I don't correct them.
All right. Well, I'm doing it right in this one and for the future.
Thank
you. Morning routine, night routine.
Oh, in life or while I'm shooting?
Well, yeah, both, I suppose.
Which is life too, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, what I aspire to is to wake up, sleep well. Sometimes I have trouble sleeping. It's genetic, but if I've slept well, I aspire to wake up, meditate for 15 or 20 minutes. We talked earlier about, I think, the importance of meditation, while you're shooting or any time, really, and how it resets you, it balances you. Because you got to do things for yourself so that you can show up for other people on set and be that, calming presence on set. At times I would try and go outside, just get some sunlight for like a little bit, or I actually have these light glasses that I put on just to get the sun rays coming in. They're, it helps. Yeah. Well, they're actually just daylight bound, like a strong daylight bounce light that just kind of goes into your pupils. It just sort of kind of resets your rhythm. And then maybe like 10 to 15 minutes of like a quick workout just to get everything going, and then eating, and then I'm on my day. And then at night, again, try for a 15-minute meditation. I'm trying, not do screens for at least an hour or so or longer before bed, read, and then, whatever it takes to get to sleep, however many pills it takes.
Yeah.
That's what I'll do.
Yes.
But developing routines, especially, it's a good question, because especially when you're shooting where you have no time, and all you want to do is come home and sit, wake up and just go, and then sit on couch and watch TV when you get home because you have no energy. Developing those routines before you get to set so that it's muscle memory in a way, I think is very important. I talk a lot about doing things for yourself and mental health, and getting that stuff right, whether it's therapy, meditation, or all of those things, I think is really important.
Yes.
Everyone should do it.
Well, I certainly will use this as a sign, especially after talking about it a ton yesterday and today.
It's a sign.
I just got to start with the routine and go for it.
And once you start doing routine, it becomes second nature, and you don't think about, oh, fuck, I have to sit with my eyes closed for 20 minutes today. It helps you. You need it. I think it's important.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And also coming and chilling for an hour.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's great.
Yeah, man. Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.